So down on the famous coast of Brighton, England, there's this incredible story of two railways. One is this celebrated piece of living history, and the other? Well, it might just be one of the strangest contraptions to ever ride the waves.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But seriously, stick with me on this one because the answer connects a brilliant mind, a totally wild imagination, and the actual waters of the English Channel.
The whole answer, really, it all comes down to one Victorian-era genius. This was a guy who looked at the dawn of a new age, the age of electricity, and decided he was going to harness all that power right there on the Brighton beachfront. His name was Magnus Volk. Okay, so let's talk about this guy. See, before Volk was even thinking about railways, he was basically Brighton's resident wizard of electricity. He was a true pioneer, absolutely obsessed with this new magical force that was starting to change everything. So, who was Magnus Volk? Well, his dad was a German clockmaker, and you could say Magnus had a mind that just ticked with invention. While most people were, still figuring out gas lamps, Volk was already wiring up the future. And I mean, he wasn't just messing around in a workshop. He was literally electrifying the city. In 1879, he showed off Brighton's first ever telephone link. A year later, he's installing the first fire alarm in a house. Same year, he fits his own house with electric lights. Then in 81, he lights up the famous Royal Pavilion. Oh, and by 1888, he's building a four-wheeled electric car for the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, come on, Volk was the real deal. So, with a resume like that, an incredible track record, he turns his attention to his real passion, transportation. And he kicks things off with an idea that would completely change Brighton's seafront forever. And when I say he kicked things off, I mean it. Things moved so fast. In June of 1883, Volk asks for permission to build an electric railway right on the seafront. By August 4th of that same year, it's open to the public, and tourists are just wowed. But here's the kicker. The most amazing part of this whole story, it's still running today. Yeah, you heard that right. Over 140 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. This thing isn't some dusty relic in a museum. It's a true survivor from the Victorian age, still chugging along. So, what was the secret sauce? The key was the tech. Volk used an electrified third rail to power the whole thing. Now, that was seriously cutting-edge stuff back then. And get this, that very concept, the third rail, would eventually be adopted by huge city metros and railways all over the world. And it all started right here, on this little seaside line in Brighton. But here's the thing about a mind like Magnus Volk's. Building a revolutionary, world-famous railway just wasn't enough, not even close. His next idea? It was way bigger, much bolder, and a whole lot weirder. He decided to build a railway not next to the sea, but in it. And what he created was something so completely unique, so utterly bizarre, that it earned one of the greatest nicknames in the history of transportation, the Daddy Longlegs. Okay, so what was this thing? Let's be clear, this was not a boat. It was a train on stilts. We're talking a 45-ton carriage perched on these enormous 23-foot-tall legs that would literally wade through the shallow waters of the English Channel, taking passengers from one pier to the next. Its official name was Pioneer, which, okay, that fits, it was pioneering, but absolutely nobody called it that. To every single person in Brighton, it was just the Daddy Longlegs. It looked like some giant mechanical sea creature just gliding along the coast. And its life? Well, its life was every bit as dramatic as its design. Construction starts in 1894. It finally opens on November 28, 1896. And just 1 week later, a massive storm hits and knocks the whole thing on its side. But Volk, ever the determined inventor, he rebuilt it. It reopened in July 1897. But even so, its glorious, strange life was always destined to be a short one. By 1901, it was closed for good. So that brings us here, to this tale of two railways. Two totally different creations, but they both came from the exact same brilliant mind. One became a practical survivor, the other, a spectacular failure. And when you put them side by side, the contrast is it's striking. You've got the sensible, enduring electric railway that's been around for over 140 years. And then you have the audacious, unforgettable Daddy Longlegs that lasted just 5. One became this cherished local attraction, and the other, a really curious, amazing historical footnote.
I mean, this chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Just look at that difference. A century and a half of quiet, reliable service versus 5 fleeting, magnificent years of, well, absurdity. So, in the end, what actually killed the daddy longlegs? It wasn't another storm. It was bureaucracy. You see, the city council decided they were going to build a new beach protection barrier, and its path went right through the railway's underwater tracks. Volk just didn't have the cash to reroute his seafaring railway, and just like that, the incredible experiment was over.
So, there you have it. The spectacular vision of the daddy longlegs met a very unspectacular end, thanks to a wall of concrete and red tape. But this is where the story of Magnus Volk's legacy gets really interesting. Because while one of his creations became this ghost on the shoreline, the other one became a living, breathing part of Brighton itself. And that, to me, is the real magic of this story. Volk's first railway isn't locked away behind glass in some museum. It's a living, tangible piece of history that you can go and experience right now, running on the Brighton seafront just like it has for over a century. So, hey, if you're feeling inspired to take a little trip back in time yourself, here's what you need to know. The train runs for about a mile along the beach, from the Aquarium Station near the Brighton Pier all the way to Blackrock Station. It runs about every 15 minutes, and the season is usually from around Easter until the end of October. And listen, here are a few little tips to make the most of your ride. Number 1, definitely sit on the side facing the sea. That's where you get the best views. Also, if you can, try to go on a weekday. It's usually a lot less crowded. And finally, remember to bring a card, because the whole thing is cashless now. And all of this kind of brings us to a final thought, a final question, really. Magnus Volk left behind these 2 incredible legacies. One is the practical, enduring railway that you can still ride today. And the other is the spectacular, glorious failure that absolutely captured the world's imagination. So it makes you wonder, which is the greater legacy? The invention that endures for centuries, or the one that was so audacious, so wild, that we can never ever forget it?